I want to share a quote of somebody. Her name is Pam Colorado. She's actually Native sister. And she has a very specific way of confronting feminism. And I think that's really important for us to know that I'm not the only one confronting this. There's been other Nicantlaca women and other venues and other organizations. But today we want to bring it to light to everyone that's watching this, hearing this for the first time. And this is her quote. It seems to me that the feminist agenda is basically one of rearranging social relations within the society which is occupying our land and utilizing our resources for its own benefit. Nothing I've encountered in feminist theory addresses the fact of our colonization or the wrongness of white women's stake in it. I can only conclude that, like Marxism, which arrives at the same outcome through class rather than gender theory, feminism is essentially a Euro supremacist ideology and is therefore quite imperialistic in its implications. Now, in the essay online, you'll get to read a whole bunch of more quotes similar to that, but I think that's a very important quote to offer regarding that. You see, the bottom line is that we attempt to solve the problems that we have as a people like Europeans do, because we think and we equate their experience as being oppressed in whichever way they are with ours. But we don't have that awareness that we're actually the ones that are colonized here. You see, when Europeans, white, Euro-Americans, when they fight for their rights, when they fight for women's rights, they already speak their language. They already love who they are. The whole damn world already loves who they are. So they don't have these issues to deal with as they're trying to fight for equality as white women. Their white brothers are already doing pretty good as far as taking over the world. We don't have that issue. We can't say that their solution is going to be our solution, because we have to look at our brothers and say, how are they being damaged as well? What is being done to repair the damage that's being done to the men in our communities? So there are solutions. What we're saying is that the solutions that we're coming up with, we should have a little bit more study and we should be more aware of our culture and history before we take on a concept that has been created to solve very specific problems in very specific areas like white women in Europe. We must ask ourselves, where does machismo come from? Like the young lady was asking, right? We have been taught that it has been inherently part of the Mexican culture. We hear it in mariachi songs. We hear it in rancheras. We're taught to believe that somehow machismo comes embedded in our men's DNA. But actually, if you learn the history and you go back before the European invasion, you start realizing that women in our societies played various roles that even barely today we're starting to see. You look at doctors, we had priestess, teachers, and all of that is documented, if you're wondering from where, in the Florentine Codex. The Florentine Codex is an original source. They should have it on Amazon. It's out of print, but it's on there. And pretty much what the Spaniards did was document the different roles that women, had in our societies, and they were astounded to see that women were doctors, that women were priestess, that women were part of the actual judicial system. That was completely unheard of in Europe. When studying our societies prior to the invasion of our lands, it becomes very evident that our gender roles were very different than what it was in Europe. To really understand the gender dynamics that we had as a people prior to 1492, we must let go of self-hating identity issues that keep us from loving ourselves as full-blood or mixed-blood Nicantlaca people. We have to dismantle colonial genocidal practices, as we have discussed earlier today, Hispanic, Latino, raza, mestizo. And we also have to dismantle the approaches that we are given to make us join things that are not going to really answer the questions of colonialism. In criticizing the next two Chicana writers, or what is known as Latina writers, we're not trying to belittle them in their work. However, we understand that they have a very influential position in the education of our people and the rest of the world when it comes to the telling and interpreting of our history. we understand that not all Chicana writers are like this, because that would just be horrible. But these two women are the ones that initially started this movement, and they're the ones that are being read, like I said, massively throughout the universities. They are the most famous Chicana writers being promoted, and Nicantlaca women who are getting educated, as myself, and I have some sisters here, I'm sure, the university level, we're witnessing that at school. They're discouraging a whole new generation of Nicantlaca women from struggle and from seeking their participation in the liberation movement for our people. Now, how many of us know what life a Mexica woman led in 1519 and 1521? How many of us have any clue? Well, if you read books like Daily Life of the Aztecs or books like the Florentine Codex, you're going to learn that, like I said earlier, Mexica women were doctors, Mexica women were poets, priestesses. We're not saying that it was an equal 100%, 50-50, because that didn't exist in anywhere in the world. That is just ridiculous to try to take the concepts that we understand of equality today and trying to inject them 500 years ago. That's just not being realistic. We need to compare our societies from what we know of them to be today based on the original sources. So now, by Ana Castillo stating that, Mexica women were just as bad as Spanish women, I think that as a Spanish woman in 1492 and 1519, if you knew what the life was of a Nicantlaca woman, I think you would have much rather have been on our continent than in Europe. Again, because of the roles that we led. And again, we encourage you all to read Daily Life of the Aztecs. It's on their education system, the type of roles that we had in society, the law system, all of that. So I want to counter that. There's a group of anthropologists, and there's a lot of information being written on the different gender roles that we had. And this group of anthropologists, they actually made a study, and they prove it in their book. It's called Indian Women of Early Mexico, and I cite the sources on the essay, if you guys are interested in reading that. And this is what they came up with. They said, the imposition of the Spanish colonial rule had a powerful influence on women's experiences and gender as an organizing principle among the Mexica. Many of the complex Mexica concepts of gender did not survive this transition, and women's activities and lives became more circumscribed and controlled. Yet, they still held enough power and authority to play significant roles in protests and uprisings. I just want to add the last part because I think it's great to show our women in resistance. So here you have a group of anthropologists who are saying that it was the Spanish invasion that dropped our women's participation, that had a complete negative impact on the type of roles that we had as women. And here we have a Chicana woman, or Latina now, who is saying that, you know what, it was just as bad. Whether it be the Spanish or the Mexica, hey, we're all just messed up anyway. So you have to keep in mind that this type of influence, there's an 18-year-old girl right now who has no clue what her history is like. She has no clue, no awareness. And she's walking into Chicano studies right now, and she's buying this book, and she's sitting there, and she's reading this, and she's saying, you know what? Screw the Mexica. I don't want to learn about that. I want to learn about, powerful women, women in struggle, women like the Raza movement, or, all these new concepts. This 18-year-old girl is going to be even further discouraged from learning her history. So this is why we're challenging and we're confronting what we find as white supremacy and Chicana feminism.